The HOA president once went so far as to call the sheriff on me for swimming in my own backyard lake, a lake I had owned for 15 years, long before her subdivision ever appeared. Imagine this. I'm floating quietly at sunset, the water calm beneath me, loons calling in the distance, when suddenly the peace shatters. Sirens slice through the sound of crickets like a blade through silk. Moments later, Deputy Martinez pulls up my gravel driveway, looking almost as puzzled as I was. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I have to issue you a citation based on an HOA complaint," he says, struggling to keep a straight face. And there she is, Karen Whitmore, standing smugly at my property line, arms crossed, her smile as artificial as plastic and as cold as her eyes. The ticket? A $1,000 fine for unauthorized recreational water use in a restricted zone. I stood there dripping wet, staring at the paper in disbelief. "Ma'am, this is my lake. I built this dock with my own hands back when you were still living in California. What would you do if someone tried to control the water on land you rightfully owned? Think about it." Most people have their own HOA nightmare stories. Karen, however, had no idea who she was picking a fight with. I had spent 20 years as a municipal finance director. She was about to learn what a real mistake looked like. But before I get to that, let me tell you how I even ended up here. My name's Garrett. 3 years ago, I lost my wife, Sarah, to cancer. We'd been married for 22 years, and when she passed, it felt like half my soul was ripped away. The grief was unbearable, the kind that steals your breath, clouds your thoughts, and makes tomorrow seem impossible. So, I did the only thing that made sense. I left everything behind and moved out to the middle of nowhere. Well, not exactly nowhere. I inherited my grandfather's 4-acre property in rural North Carolina. It came with a spring-fed lake that's been in my family since 1952. My grandfather built the original cabin after returning from Korea, and that lake became his refuge. Now, it was becoming mine. Picture it. Crystal clear water fed by underground springs, surrounded by towering pines that smelled like Christmas morning. At dawn, the mist would rise over the surface while loons called across the stillness. I'd sit on the dock, coffee in hand, sipping from Sarah's favorite chipped mug she refused to throw away. I'd watch rainbow trout break the surface, catching insects, and in those moments, wrapped in silence, broken only by the wind or a fish's splash, I felt something close to healing. The downfall of Karen's petty empire was within reach. My cabin smelled of fresh coffee and quiet determination as Patricia and I laid out our plan with the precision of generals preparing for D-Day. Our first recruit was Janet Morrison, a retired teacher from Maple Court who had spent 2 years meticulously documenting Karen's abuses. Janet carried the kind of steady resilience only lifelong educators possess, sharpened by years of dealing with entitled parents and endless budget cuts. Karen had once fined her $200 for installing a simple bird bath, claiming the concrete doves violated the neighborhood's so-called vision of suburban perfection. When I finally called her, her voice carried 2 decades of restrained frustration. "Mr. Henderson, I've been waiting for someone to stand up to that woman. What do you need?" Her spiral notebook contained 2 years' worth of violations, fines, and harassment, all logged with the precision of a grade book. Every surprise inspection, every hostile board meeting, every ignored objection was there. Our next ally was Bob Martinez, an accountant from Oak Ridge Drive. His crime? Daring to question the HOA's finances. Bob was the kind of man who could sense when numbers didn't quite add up, a dangerous skill in Karen's kingdom of creative accounting. Over breakfast at a greasy diner, he leaned across the table, the smell of bacon thick in the air. "I've been trying to review invoices for months," he said. "Karen claims everything is proprietary, but I've already found $43 0-inch unexplained expenses this year alone." His spreadsheet exposed irregularities that would make any auditor sweat. Inflated landscaping bills, equipment purchases with no delivery records, and legal fees tied to matters that had nothing to do with HOA business. The final piece of our coalition was Lisa Park, a civil engineer who had originally designed the subdivision's drainage system before Karen altered it without permits. Lisa had the practical brilliance of someone who builds things that must work in the real world. At our meeting, she laid out the stakes plainly. "Karen changed my drainage specifications to save money. Now runoff flows straight towards your lake. If the state environmental agency steps in, they could shut down the entire subdivision. Lisa brought not only technical expertise, but also the credibility we needed to counter Karen's emotional manipulation. By Friday evening, our war council gathered at my kitchen table. Patricia had prepared 3 binders of evidence, each organized for maximum impact. Our plan was simple but surgical. Expose Karen's financial fraud, reveal the hidden zoning crisis, and present my membership application as the solution to both problems. Bob would present the numbers clear and undeniable. $45,000 billed to Rick's landscaping company for work worth only $18,000. $28,000 spent on pool maintenance, supposedly done daily, but in truth performed weekly. Even Karen's divorce attorney had been paid with community funds. Janet would read stories from residents who had endured years of harassment, while Lisa would reveal the environmental violations Karen had buried. From experience, I knew facts alone weren't enough. People respond to human stories more than statistics. Together, we would show that Karen wasn't just a nuisance, she was the problem. Patricia walked us through the legal path. North Carolina law was clear. Emergency board elections could be triggered by any member with evidence of financial misconduct. My pending membership application gave me standing, and my 31% voting share meant Karen's loyalists couldn't block the move. Even if Karen tried her usual tricks, ending the meeting early, silencing me as a non-member, or even calling the police, Patricia had every countermeasure ready. By Saturday morning, the crisp October air carried a sense of possibility. At 7 a.m., 3 hours before the showdown, we met again in my cabin. The smell of bacon and coffee blended with our nervous energy. Janet's hands trembled, but her eyes burned with resolve. Someone has to stop her before she destroys this community completely. Bob, energized at the thought of finally revealing the truth, grinned. Numbers don't lie, and Karen's numbers have been lying for 3 years. Lisa rolled out her maps and diagrams, proof no resident could ignore. Once they see how much she's wasted on shortcuts, they'll understand why fees keep climbing. For the first time in months, I felt calm. After years of playing defense against Karen's attacks, we were finally ready to go on the offensive with undeniable evidence and the law on our side.